Hello everyone, it's Infinity Gamer here, and this video is going to talk about a rule I think needs a little bit more clarification in N5. The rule is the use of command tokens, and the particular bullet point is the one in which you can take two orders out of an order pool, but with a couple of caveats to it. There's the rule up on the screen right now. As a familiarization, removing two regular orders from their opponent's order pool, the player may choose which groups these orders correspond to. This option may only be performed during the opponent's tactical phase, right after the order count. The player may only remove the orders from army lists that have more than 10 orders, regular plus irregular plus tactical. What's not super clear is the private and the public information aspect here. The confusing bit is that it specifically says that they may only be performed during the opponent's tactical phase. Now that is, as you can see there, is basically after the orders have been generated. And that's all of the open orders. That's open information, public information is the amount of orders generated. The question that kind of arises here is, what about hidden deployment? What about AD, for example? Or is that those won't be generated during the tactical phase, but they would be part of the army list, which is the confusing aspect in that kind of second to last line where it says, may only remove the orders from army lists that have more than 10 orders. So the wording here is making it very confusing as to whether, if the list has 10 orders, is it exempt from having two orders taken from it, or is it the number of orders that get generated in the tactical phase where you may only see 10 orders. I've had different conversations with different people around this, and some people are like, it clearly says army list, so even though you've got orders that aren't on the table because of hidden deployment or because of airborne deployment, those orders still count because they are in your list. Then having discussions with other people just saying that would involve disclosing private information, which kind of defeats the point of it being private, because if you start the game with only 10 orders in an order pool, but then someone says, I want to use my strategic use of command token, you go, well, you can because I've got more orders sitting hidden, then that kind of goes, well, you do have some hidden deployment in there. It's really interesting here, this distance, and because there isn't a similar thing for us to base this rule on historically, it's really tricky for us to go, it definitely needs to be this, because it's basically a rule that was in N4 and it's now come into N5. It's so different to how the version of this played in N3 that you can't really see what Corvus Belli's intent is behind this rule. And I think that's making it really tricky for people to self-police this and go, actually, it's clearly supposed to be this, even though it hasn't been worded very clearly. It would be super handy for Corvus Belli to just clarify whether it is based on the orders that get generated in the tactical phase. If 10 or less orders have been generated, you can't strip the order pool, regardless of what's in hidden and all of that sort of stuff, or whether the wording around army lists is actually more accurate. And what they mean is, if the list contains 10 or more orders in an order pool, I think it's just that clarification of why is it so important that it's a tactical phase if it's not order generation that matters. I think that's just the sort of thing that just needs clearing up a little bit to make it super clear, especially as people start to create lists and go, actually, is limited insertion, as it used to be called, a viable strategy here, or is pseudo-limited insertion for something like JSA, which has lots of hidden deployment, could that be a viable strategy where you go, actually, I've only got 10 orders that you know about, but I've got another 4 units potentially, or I've got quite a lot of my army is there in hidden deployment. As I'm going to be playing JSA in the start of M5, I want it to be the second, because that plays really into what JSA does very well, but I can understand if the intent is slightly different. But I think it would just be really handy to get that clarification publicly, and probably even in the rules that everyone's starting to read right now, rather than an answer on the forum which not everyone goes to. What do you think? Have you got your own interpretation of that rule? Are you reading it differently, or do you think I've missed something that means that I shouldn't be this confused about it? Really keen to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let me know how you would play this, and I'll be back soon with more videos.